We still do 7 NUFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications option. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching. Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters. It is Ask Gibbo. Good morning, John. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good, mate. I've got the flags out ready to celebrate this weekend.
Good stuff. Great stuff. Good to be live again after last night's show. As I said, next couple of weeks has been last week and this week's going to be quite pre-recorded heavy, but good to do a live one with John going into the final game of the season, which of course we'll look at in the second half of the show. But let's just look back at the game at Arsenal. At the Emirates, Newcastle were chasing 4 wins out of 4 against Arsenal. It wasn't to be, but John, Newcastle, we can't really be too disappointed. I mean, you don't like losing games, but you know the stats that were coming out of that fixture after the 1-0 defeat. 50 odd shots that Arsenal had at Newcastle's back 4 before they managed to break them down. It tells you the story of Newcastle versus Arsenal this season.
Oh, I mean, Newcastle should have been out of sight in the first half, Steve. I mean, by half time, the game should have been won. Rea made 4 world-class saves. His kicking was atrocious, but his saves were absolutely brilliant. And we looked at quality side in the first half. What concerned me, and it does, and facts back it up, was no Isak, no goals. Now, I know he hasn't been playing that well since Wembley, but he occupies both centre halves. Teams are scared of him, and I mean the record books, speaks for itself. We've started 4 games without Isak in the Premier League this season, and we haven't scored a goal in general open play without him. The only goal we scored in those 4 games was a penalty. So it shows that we miss him enormously. It also shows the work we've got to do in the summer, getting back up for the lad. But I mean, that tells you how important he is that he plays against Everton on Sunday. And we've only got to think back to earlier this season, Steve, when we played Everton down there. We drew 0-0. And guess what? Isak didn't start. So we didn't score goals. And that's how Anthony Gordon got the penalty he took. And he hit it straight at Pickford. It was a poor penalty, and we drew 0-0, and we didn't have Isak, so we need him. We need him on Sunday, big time. I think we would scrape by without him, but I want him there.
Yeah, he is a big miss, no doubt about it, and let's hope he is fit for the weekend. I mean, the positives you could take out of that game. I know we lost, but was there anything you looked at in that that performance to suggest that Newcastle will give a better performance against Everton at the weekend?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the first half we were a joy to watch. Outside of putting the ball in the net, we were an absolute joy to watch. We were playing the team second top. Who always are second top. And we absolutely outplayed them. They had Declan Rice back, a huge, big-name player. And in the end, he was the one that made the difference. And we were without Isak. But we passed them to death. We played them at their game and passed them to death. We looked a very, very good side. It was a little bit alarming that At the beginning of the second half, we dropped off. And I was saying that at half time, Steve, as I was saying, I hope we don't do what we did against Chelsea in the last game, where we dominated Chelsea in the first half. We come to the interval and we dropped off in the second half. And sure enough, we dropped off in the second half against Arsenal. They scored, and then we rallied and we had a bit of a finish, but we couldn't find the goal. But the performance was more than decent. And if we play like we did in the first half against Arsenal, we will be comfortable against Everton. Absolutely no question about that.
Yeah, I agree as well. I've got to be honest. It wasn't too disappointing, and from my perspective, I think we will do well at the weekend. But lots of people asking questions, which is what this show is all about. And Geordie Toomba Live says, "Has Gibbo any updates on injuries? I don't mean Isak. Thank you in advance."
Yeah. Isak will be a last moment job. I don't think that they will risk either Joe Linton or Trips in this match, and I don't know that they can. The whole, in my opinion, Steve, the whole essence of the team, etc., will be determined by the fitness of two players, Isak and Botman. Um, is Isak, is he going to be fit? Botman, how fit is he? It may well be that he decides not to risk Botman and flatten the back four out, because we played a five and it worked very successfully in terms of Chelsea and in terms of the first half at Arsenal. But it was nice to have a belt and braces, and we perhaps needed a belt and braces against sides of the quality of Chelsea and Arsenal, who were Champions League chasing sides. Or Everton, with respect on that, if he doesn't want to risk Botman's knee and wants to give him the summer's rest and he comes back good, he can flatten out the back four by putting Kraft in a right back and leaving Shaw and Burn together. And then he finds a third midfielder, which he's got the choice of Willock or Miley, and then he's got up top, and up top depends on Isak. So the, it's Botman is not unfit. It's whether you risk him. When we've started him recently, you'll have noticed he does about an hour or just less, and then we bring him off. Are we going to do that in this game? We only need to do that if we want to continue to play a five, Steve. If we want to flatten it out, Kraft will do fine at right back, and we can put Botman on the bench in case we want to change it later and put him on for a quarter an hour, 20 minutes. But that's the two decisions, fitness-wise, that's got to be made by Howe. Does he risk Botman from the start, and how fit's he at?
Yeah, okay. Next question comes in from Alan Little. He says, "What is Gibbo's favourite ever Toon goal?" Mine is David Ginola versus Ferencvaros. A chest, knee, and then a volley from a corner.
It was a wonderful goal, that, and I remember it. I remember it ever so well. It depends on what you want. Is your favourite goal a one that's absolutely exquisite, or is it a one that does something, like wins you a trophy or gets you into Europe? I mean, there's a few Supermac goals, these semi-final goals in the FA Cup. The goal he scored in Bolton when he took it on the swivel from a throw in and stuck it in the far corner past Barry Siddle, and he was playing against Sam Allardyce. Loved that. There was Shearer, I think it was against Everton, wasn't it, when he nearly ripped the top off the net at the Gallagher end, which was absolutely brilliant. We've had scores and scores of them. I like goals that actually blink and win us something, because we don't win something too often. So if I think, look at the goals against Paris Saint-Germain last season. We're going to be thinking about those when we talk about great goals. We're certainly going to be mentioning Dan Burns' goal at Wembley, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely are. There's so many great goals over the years. Shearer's goals often are the ones that stand out for me. The one against Everton, of course. The one that broke Jackie Milburn's record. The one that Andy Cole scored to make it 41 goals and beat Hughie Gallagher's record. Any goal of significance from Peter Beardsley as well. The one against Brighton in '84. Amazing. But there's
I
so
mean,
many.
he was just class. I mean, he just bamboozled everybody, including his own teammates. His shimmy, his shunt, and if he wanted, he could make you look a fool. I mean, he had so much ability, he could beat somebody and then bring the ball back and beat him again before he stuck it in the net. I mean, absolute quality. And we've had a few players that can do that sort of thing. We've had wonderful players down the years, Steve. We just haven't had them all at the same time to win things until this season. Because it's a team game. I mean, when we look back, how didn't we win things when we had Shearer, when we had Supermac, when we had the entertainers? How all that entertainers team, how on earth we didn't win some sort of trophy during that period, goodness only knows. But we've put all that to rest this season, which is why I want to finish off on a good note by beating Everton.
Yeah, too many goals, I guess. Beardsley versus Pompey away, another good one. That's one of Peter's favourites. Yes, Joe Corrigan was in goal that day. Geordie Toon for life as well for Brighton. And where was it? My favourite goal is our next one against Everton. This is Geordie
Yeah, I
Toon for
tell
life.
you what, that is a good answer, my friend. I wish we'd said that. My favourite goal is the winning one against Everton.
Yeah.
That would be my favourite goal.
Good morning, Alan. He says, does Gibbo recall Newcastle's 4-3 win over Leicester in February 1997? Shearer scored a stunning hat-trick despite a troublesome groin. 10 days later, he had a hernia operation. Isak to do the same.
Alan, that's a lovely thought. We're getting some good vibes this morning because that's the sort of thing that Shearer did and was capable of doing, and ignored groins as much as he could, and that's an awful injury for a footballer. And sure enough, a groin has been Alex's trouble over recent weeks and hasn't helped the situation. I think that he'll be patched up and sent out there and say, look, give us an hour. Because in that hour, it's not just a matter of whether he can score, but he opens the door for the people to score. And if he can give us an hour and we're ahead comfortably, say 2-0, you can bring him off and it's job done. But get rid of the panic. Don't have him on the bench to bring on, because to do that, he'll only have about 20 minutes and we'll be in trouble if we need to bring him on. So start him, strap him up like a chicken, start him and get the job done, and then get him sitting next to Eddie for the last half hour of the game. But I've got a feeling, unless one of his legs falls off, that he will start on Sunday.
Yeah, that 4-3 win over Leicester was superb, Alan. I mean, I've been to some amazing comebacks over the years, and that was one of those remarkable games, which I think everyone will remember in great detail who was there. Tom Dixon says, over for me, Martin's goal against Spurs is one of his favourites, as well as the Shearer volley against Everton. Trolls says, my favourite goal was Pape Cisse against Chelsea. Best goal ever, in my opinion, which was did he mean it? And Darren says... Yeah, go on.
What about there's many, isn't there? What about Quixote when we were 4-0 down against Arsenal at half time, got back to 4-4? The only goal Quixote scored for us, and I mean, he brayed the ball into the back of the net, didn't he? And he went berserk and rang up the pitch, bless him. And I think Hobbs ran out the goal to dive on him and did his hammy or something in the enthusiasm of diving onto check Geordie. But he was such a lovely man. I knew him and talked and did interviews with him when he was here. What happened to him was tragic, but a lovely, lovely memory of him is that fourth goal in the 4-4 with Arsenal.
Yeah, Shearer is the standout one against Everton, plus the one against Sheffield Wednesday, says Darren. Tony Green against Birmingham, 40-yard run past 5 players and a 30-yard shot into the top corner, says David Cook as well. So lots of memories and lots of goals coming flooding back to everybody. Geordie Toon for Life says, question for Gibbo. I rate Eddie Howe and his staff so highly. I'd like to know his current contract situation in terms of how long he has to run. Thank you. I mean, he did get an extension, John, didn't he?
Yes,
I'd have to Google it.
Yes, he did. And it's not up anytime soon. But the wonderful thing with Eddie, is that he actually, two things. A, he doesn't want to go. And I mean, he really doesn't want to go. He knows that this is the best job in the world and it's perfect for him. And it's perfect for Newcastle United. In no way does he want to go, and he's not chasing pound notes because he's satisfied with the money he's got, etc., etc. What he is chasing is signing the right players and us continuing down the road that we're on now, which is very, very reassuring. I have no, when we worry, Steve, about who might go. Isak's linked forever with Arsenal and whoever. Gordon's linked with Liverpool. Tonali's linked with all of Italy. Bruno, who will trigger his clause? Will it be Man City or anything? And you're concerned. You're pretty certain that these guys aren't going to go. But the last person I think is going to go, is Eddie Howe. He is absolutely realizes what he's got here. I often said with KK at the time, and Eddie Howe reminds me a lot of KK. I often said with KK, because he always knee jerked and threatened to leave, and then I always said with KK, you ought to be careful what you wish for because you don't find the grass is greener. And in fairness to him, at the end of his managerial career, which is in there now, I think he looks back and he realizes his first job was his best job, and his first job was Newcastle United. When he left us and he went to Fulham and he went to Man City and he went to England, he never had a job that fitted him like the Newcastle United job did. And I often wonder whether he thinks perhaps I shouldn't have left. He would never admit that KK. He's a lovely lad, and he believes, he wears his heart on his sleeve. He believes a decision he makes is the right decision, and he'll stick with it. But I often wonder whether, because without shadow of doubt, the best job he had was Newcastle, and it was never going to be as good again, and it wasn't. And I think Eddie Howe thinks in terms of that now, but Eddie Howe's thinking it while he's still at Newcastle. So I can't see Eddie leaving until he was approaching older age, when he might take an England job in about 15, 20 years' time.
Yeah, I love this quote from Alan. I did hear this on the coverage of the match last night, to be fair. The Magpies, the Eagles, the Cockerels and the Liverbirds are all winners this season. It's interesting, isn't it? Little things that happen like that, John. But it is a good point that Alan makes.
It is a good point, and I smile. I heard it last night, and I had a little smile when I heard it because I thought it was very appropriate. And what it is as well, Steve, it's the year of the underdogs, because Newcastle United hadn't won a domestic cup for 70 years, and they beat the mighty Liverpool, the Premier League champions, in the final of the League Cup. Crystal Palace hadn't won the FA Cup ever, and they beat the mighty Manchester City in the final. And Spurs hadn't won a trophy for 17 years, and they beat Manchester United in the final. So it's the year of the underdogs, the underdog teams, and I love that. Newcastle, Crystal Palace, and Spurs won against habitual winners, which are Liverpool, Man City, and Manchester United. So it's turned out to be a good season.
Yeah, certainly has. David asks, do you think they'll take the cup around on the season lap of honour? I mean, we often, have this lap of honour at the end of each season. Sometimes it's been a lap of dishonour after what we've had to watch. But yeah, I mean, I'd be surprised if they didn't, John, because it is something they've won, and maybe that is the time to do it.
Yes, I would like them to do that. We've got to qualify for the Champions League, mind. But I don't think if we didn't get the result against Everton and we weren't in the Champions League, they would take the pot round. But I'm fully expecting, I really, really am fully expecting that we do make the Champions League because it's in our own hands. And for me, that's a magnificent double. If we win the League Cup and make the Champions League, that's a double. And I think they ought to take the cup round then and thoroughly enjoy it, because the punters will enjoy it and the players would enjoy it too. I would love to see that, yeah.
Yeah, Alan says, I was at the Leicester game in 75 to see the Supermac Thunderbolt. It can only live on in memory because there was no cameras present. Graham says, back in
the nice thing, Alan, was that there was me, you, Steve, and 300,000 fans at that game. I don't know how they all got in, but everywhere I go, everybody saw that game and that goal, which wasn't live on telly. It's absolutely true. But I mean, I don't know whether we played on the town moor, and it was a bit like the homecoming because so many fans saw we play. They weren't all in St James's, but there we go. Everybody remembers it.
Graham says back in '84, Neil MacDonald popped one in from the front of the benches at St James's Park, top corner in the Gallowgate. Shame it was for the reserves. Somebody's mentioned Paul Gascoigne against Crystal Palace, which of course is one of my favourites. Lone Wolf says, do you feel that we will go for Jack Grealish in the summer?
I hope not. That's just my opinion. I hope we don't. He can, on his day, be a good player. And I think he's a very, very likeable lad. But unfortunately, he enjoys himself a little too much for me, which is a bit amazing to say, the way I enjoy myself with Supermac. But he gets distracted. And having his Manchester City career has gone down the pan, not just because Guardiola wants to play a certain way and wants his wingers to do certain things. It went down the pan because after Manchester City did the treble, which was Jack Grealish's best season at City, he seemed to lose his impetus. I've done everything here, subconsciously thinking that, and he become a playboy. And as a consequence, the edge has gone off his game. And the only way he would probably might just get his edge back for me is if he went back to Aston Villa, where he's a hero. Would that stir him back into what he had been? But I particularly don't want him. Do we need an outside left, which is where he plays for City, because we've got Anthony Gordon and Harvey Barnes, if we keep both of them? If you let him just roam anywhere, he's a loose cannon in the sort of formation that Eddie Howe likes. And could he play midfield? I would want to sign a lot more players ahead of him.
Yeah, lots of people agreeing with you, John, that Grealish could unsettle the dressing room. Paul Patterson would like to activate Delap's release clause this summer. He said last night's Manchester United result has surely given us a leg up. I can't see him going there now. And a lot of people feeling that Man United's options will have to change, and maybe their transfer options will change because they haven't got European football next season.
Well, I was still, I mean, it was a donkey derby, wasn't it? It was the two deadbeats were playing each other. How it had a European title on it, I don't know, but it did. And you can only do what you do. But I was pleased it was Spurs because I'm sick of Manchester United. They stopped winning the Premier League twice when we had the entertainers. They beat us in our first Carabao Cup final under Eddie. Last season, when they out of nowhere, they beat Man City in the FA Cup final, and therefore we were deprived of the last place in Europe. And also in their rebuilding, I didn't want them to be giving all the money that the Champions League brings with them. It'll serve them right to sit out a season of European football. So I was quite happy to see that, and it will change what they can do in the transfer market. Delap's going to be interesting. A lot of players want. It'll be interesting to see what the guy does. Because if he goes to Manchester United, you're going for the fame and the fortune, aren't you? For the big club in reputation, in history, and a lot of pound notes. You're not going because of what's immediately in front of you, because they're not even in the minor European competitions next season. A lot of people will trigger the £30 million release clause. The interesting thing, Steve, is that it doesn't automatically mean that he goes for 30 million. Because if we go in for him at that price, and Man United go in for him and say whoever else goes in for him, then you don't have to stick at 30. You can say, I'll top it and give you 40. I'll top it and give you 50 to get him ahead of the other clubs. So it's going to be interesting. He would be ideal for what we want, which is a cover. He could play in the same side as Isak. He's the sort of, and he's young with a good pedigree, scored goals in his side that wasn't all out attacking, and has been brought up the right way at Man City. But it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what he wants to do, because the word on the grapevine was he was leaning heavily towards Manchester United. But will last night have changed that?
Yeah, Robert, good morning. Says talk about the downfall of Man United all you want, but you have to fancy them at the playoffs in 2 years. Lots of people happy to see Man United essentially, the demise. Lone Wolf asks, do you think is this the worst Manchester United team that you can remember seeing, John?
Just about. The only other one was the one that went down with Tommy Dock, when it had all the aging stars in it, and there was chaos behind the scenes. And bless him, I knew Tommy Dock ever so well. I worked with him loads of times on talk-ins, but he could cause trouble in an empty house himself. So you stuck him in with all the aged stars, and like Bobby Charlton and Dennis Law, who had been sensational, were beginning to be frayed at the edges, and you got Tommy stirring it, and he got rid of Law, who hated him for that, and that was one of the bad sides. I mean, they almost at one stage went down into the third division, didn't they?
Yeah.
Almost. So, they've had some horrible sides, but this one is horrible. I mean, if you watched the game last night, once Spurs went ahead, they more or less, which is very unlike Spurs, because under Angie, they're all front foot and gung ho and high pressing in a high line, and you can lob the ball over the top and get in behind them. But it was what we have, we hold. And they defended brilliantly, and they were organised to defend brilliantly. And to be perfectly truthful, Manchester United didn't have a clue on how to break them down. They normally rely on Bruno to do that with a moment of magic. He couldn't produce that last night. Anyway, we know there's only one Bruno, and he's going to captain Newcastle to the Champions League on Sunday. But without Ferdinand doing the job, I mean, they are awful. They are awful. And the big names, Mason Mount, an England player, Luke Shaw, an England player. I mean, they look dreadful. They looked dreadful. And by the way, have you seen a cup final, as one about it, a European cup final, with two goalkeepers as poor as the Spurs goalkeeper and the Manchester United goalkeeper? How it was 1-0 and not 7-6, I'll never know, because both goalkeepers were absolutely horrible.
Yeah, Darren, you're right. The Manchester United model of the 90s was using youth players. Now they seem to go out and waste money on players, which makes them worse. It's like the youth setup's gone out the window from those Sir Alex Ferguson days. And Amorim, a lot of people are wondering if Amorim is going to leave. He certainly doesn't look as committed as he did when he came in. And he looks very dissatisfied. I think that's an understatement, John.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? My feeling is the job's too big for him. I mean, I know on the grapevine he offered to resign within weeks of taking over. He went to the board and offered to resign and said, "This job's too big for me. There's too many things wrong. The pressure, it's like a pressure cooker. This can't be put right straight away, etc., etc." And they persuaded him not to walk and said, "We'll do things in the summer for you. We understand you can't turn it around this year, etc., etc." But all the quotes he gives, he's almost inviting to be finished, isn't he? He's saying things like, "I can't believe that we haven't been getting hammered by the crowd. Even if we win the Europa Cup," he said before last night, "it's not good enough." And he's saying last night, "If anybody wants me to go, I'll go and there'll be no trouble." He's almost, I think he's overawed by it. I think it's a huge, huge club with a massive spotlight, but also it's rotten to the core, and he doesn't know how to handle that. He's had a comfort zone at Benfica where everything was working the way he wants it to work, and it isn't here. I think he would, if he got the sack tomorrow, and I don't think he will, but I think he'd be relieved.
Yeah, Ken's just reminding us again of that goal, Supermac against Leicester. Never televised, but it hit so hard from at least 35 yards. Mark Wellington, Leicester keeper, thought it had hit the bar and dived on it, when in fact it had hit the net and bounced out. Yeah, great memories of that particular goal. Darren says Tonali against Brentford was another one. And Jordan Super Life says Ben Arthur against Everton. There was also that wonderful FA Cup goal that Ben Arthur scored as well, which we remember. Darren says it's shocking that our game is not selected for television. They've gone with a pointless game like Liverpool and Palace with nothing to play for. Yeah, strange, isn't it? The TV game at the weekend. I mean, we understand that Forest and Chelsea, that is a big game. Everyone's, everyone would be very interested in that game at St James's Park, of course. But to go with Liverpool Palace, it's just the Liverpool loving. They've won the title, and it's all about the presentation of the trophy, John, isn't it?
Well, it is, and the thing, it's presentation of the trophy, and the thing, it's the champions against the FA Cup holders. But to be truthful, and it's the emotion of at Anfield, etc., etc. But it is a dead rubber. And to the rest of the country, the game itself doesn't matter. It's the end when they come on with the trophy and etc., etc. But it's a nonsense. I think it's a miscalculation. And the big games are who's going to get in the Champions League. And I thoroughly understand the biggest game of that on paper is Forest against Chelsea, because the winners win and the losers die. So that is massive. But also us, after the season we've had and won the cup and been in the top 5 all season and in a great position, and we have the best, I think, the best game of all on Sunday, because I don't know, Chelsea are away, Man City are away, and Villa are away, and we're at home. Forest are at home, but with a tough game. I would have thought they would have come to Tyneside. I don't care, because I'll be in the game anyway. But for our supporters who can't get to the game or live elsewhere in the country, etc., etc., it is very disappointing. And Liverpool v Crystal Palace, despite the emotion of Liverpool, doesn't make sense at all.
Darren says 8th spot gets our European place if we finish in the top 5. So even the two clubs battling for 8th will be hoping we beat Everton on Sunday. Robert Maltman says, what does Gibbo think of the way the Liverpool fans are treating Trent Alexander-Arnold for leaving to go to Madrid?
It is a shame, because he's one of their own. He's been there since being a small lad, and he thinks it's time to go. But we've had that before. Excuse me. We've had that before. Waddle got treated very badly by Newcastle fans for leaving Newcastle, and whenever he come back, he got treated badly. And yet people like Beardsley and Gascoigne didn't, and the three of them moved at the same time. It happens. I felt it was sad, and I was shocked at how much there was of it, how viciously he was booed the second he come on, and every time he touched the ball. You've got to think there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. If you were living on Merseyside, you might see it a little bit different. It's a very emotive subject, isn't it? Because think of Anthony Gordon's, how he was received on Merseyside for leaving Everton. He's as big a hate figure at Everton for the way he left, and I know he almost forced the transfer to Newcastle upon them. But he's hated by Everton fans as much as Pickford's hated by Newcastle United fans. So you really run the risk when you're a local lad leaving your local club, especially at a time when they're doing ever so well. They just won the Premier League, for goodness sake. And of course, what was unfortunate for Trent is that the other two, whose contracts were up, actually signed to stay on, and he went to leave, so he was always going to be seen as a traitor. But it shocked me how vocal it was, and I think if you look closely at his body language, Steve, it shocked him.
Yeah, certainly did. David says, what does Gibbo think about the loss of integrity in clubs not competing in some games lately? For example, Liverpool reserves versus Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, I was distraught about that because of our involvement in the situation. But I think it was Ange, wasn't it, that came out with the answer to that before last night's Europa League final, when he said, "I can do what I want. I am running Spurs, and I will do what's best for Spurs." Um, and whatever anybody else thinks, they can think. It's within the rules. There used to be a situation, Steve, can you remember, when they threatened you if you didn't feel your strongest side, you could be in trouble with the Premier League or something of that side. And of course, at least with Spurs, there were resting players prior to a European Cup final, so that was understandable. With with Liverpool, what were they resting the players for? They weren't in any more cups. They weren't saving them for anything. They were just letting them get the cigars out. But you've just got to put up with that. It's nothing new. You've got to put up with that, and you've got to get on with it with the rules. And we have done, and we're coming out of it with whatever Liverpool did for the Chelsea game, etc., etc. We then took care of business ourselves by beating Chelsea, and so therefore it's in our own hands this weekend. I don't like it when teams do that, but it's within the laws.
John, you and I are confident that we're going to do it this weekend. There are the fixtures. Man City play Fulham at Fulham. Newcastle take on Everton at home. Chelsea take on Nottingham Forest at Forest. Manchester United take on Aston Villa, which has been the game that's been chosen for televisation by TNT. And of course, as I say, Forest Chelsea. So the state of play at this moment in time: Forest 65 points. Manchester United, Aston Villa, 66 points. Then you've got 66 points for Newcastle and for Chelsea, and Man City with a slight advantage there with 68 points. My question to you, John, is very simple. Who do you think is going to miss out?
That's a great question. I'm more concerned about who's going to get in first and foremost, and I'm more concerned that it's Newcastle, and I don't care who it is after that, and I really don't. I mean, obviously the five's going to be Liverpool and Arsenal. That's two. I think it will be in no particular order us, Man City, and Aston Villa. So you then go Chelsea and Forest to miss out. And they could, can that happen? Can they both miss out? Yes, they can, I think. If Villa win and we win and City say get draw, yeah, I think the two that could well miss out would be Chelsea and Forest.
Yeah, I think it's the top. It is the top five because the bottom the sixth place has now gone to Spurs, hasn't it? So Spurs are in the Champions League now.
Yes, yeah,
So
it's a top five that make it. Yes.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's that's Gibbo's thoughts. What are your thoughts? Stick them in the chat. It's days like this I wish Malcolm was here as well, John, because there is a list of players been released, of course, since we last spoke, and it is the Player of the Season shortlist, and it is Ryan Gravenberch, Mo Salah, Virgil van Dijk, Morgan Gibbs-White, Alexander Isak, Brian Mbeumo, Declan Rice, and of course, Chris Wood, John. There he is. Chris Wood on the list. Has he done enough to win it?
Why, not likely. Not likely. I tell you what, I would take that list if I could get it, that list, the way it is there, in the order it is there, and I would pin it up at the training ground on the notice board and say, Isak, have you noticed you're beneath Chris Wood in that list? Do you want to go out on Sunday and score a hat trick and confirm you're in the Champions League while Chris Wood and Nottingham Forest don't? I mean, Chris is a lovely lad, and we have a lot of fun about the situation, you and I, and certainly Supermac. But I agree totally with Supermac. I mean, he's only got two gears, slow and full stop. Chris Wood. He's had a wonderful, wonderful season. He's never had a goal-scoring season like this before. But all his goals come early doors, didn't it? His record recently of goal scoring has been very average. He's gone back to human nature. And the man might get a hat trick against Chelsea. Good luck to him. But I tell you what, I always said when he was scoring all the goals at the beginning of this season, I was saying, let's see if he does it again next season. And bless him. And he's in his 30s now, and this is the first time he's ever had a season like this. Isak had a season like this last season, and that's what goal scorers do. And he'll have a season like this next season. Um, yes, he's got to be in that list. But I mean, honest to goodness, I just think he would come third in a two-horse race.
Good stuff. Any substance in the rumours about Anthony Gordon leaving, John?
No, I don't think there is. But we're bound to get this because there is always a feeling, isn't there, that you have to, if you're going to keep going forward, at some stage you've got to cash in on a high-profile player. Aston Villa did it with Duran this season, and the guy that went to Juventus the previous season. You get 60, 70, 80 million for one man, and you spread the load about. And because Harvey Barnes has come so good, and because Gordon's had a dip in form since the cup final. Well, since before the cup final, when he got himself sent off silly, then he got injured on England duty. He's never quite, he's only got back on the side. He made the mistake that he did at Arsenal. He hasn't looked quite the player he is. But I mean, there's always rumours, isn't there? There was rumours Anthony Gordon in his pomp when he was magnificent for England and for us was going to go to Liverpool. Then it was Isak's going to go somewhere. Then it was Harvey Barnes is bound to go because Gordon's so wonderful. Now Barnes is scoring goals. It's Barnes is going to stay and Gordon's going to go. I don't want any of them to go. I'm not certain that in this moment we need a big hitter to go unless a big hitter was causing trouble behind the scenes, agitating to get away, and therefore we had to let him go. I think we're being harsh on Gordon. He could well come good again. I would love that to happen on Sunday. I'm not certain, mind, that he'll start on Sunday, but he'll certainly play at some stage. He needs a lift, the lad. He's found life hard. And you know what I think, Steve? He's a confidence player. He plays on confidence, and his confidence is low at the moment. And I think that shows. Newcastle will always be open to something can happen. If somebody went and says there's 100 million for Anthony Gordon, I think Newcastle could well sell him, but nobody's going to offer that much. And I don't think that Eddie Howe will look to sell him at all. I would think that he won't be sold, and neither will Bruno, neither will Isak, neither will Joe Linton, neither will Tonali.
Tom wants to know where you think Kevin De Bruyne will go when he leaves Man City.
I don't care. He'll not come here because he's past his sell-by date. He's been a magnificent player. But Supermac was a magnificent player, but I don't want him to be centre forward for Newcastle next season because I think it's a tad too late for him with his dodgy knees and his dodgy hip and his dodgy everything else. De Bruyne may well get a club mid-table in the Premier League or lower. He'll certainly get a club in America or Saudi if he wanted it. He could well decide to go abroad. I think Wrexham would move heaven and earth to have him, but to join the Hollywood set, now they're in the Championship with the two Hollywood superstars running the club, they would absolutely love him. I do honestly think he's a great player, very much on the other side of the hill. So all I'm concerned about is what we get, and that's enough for me to think of it. But if somebody said to me, would you sign Jack Grealish? My answer would be no. If somebody said to me, would you sign Kevin De Bruyne? My answer would be no. And if somebody said to me, would you sign Vardy as your centre forward? My answer would be no.
There you go. David says, what do you think about the threat of action with our connection with Fun 88 and the fact that they aren't registered in the UK? Sanctions are an option, apparently. I saw this story, and I think it was Liam Kennedy who put it out there. But again, I think Newcastle's owners, PIF, have always dotted the I's and crossed the T's, John. And I guess I can understand why an article like that would go out, but I think Newcastle have been very cute so far and will continue to be so, and will play with a straight bat, John.
Yeah, me too. I don't think there will be any trouble. There's always stories about things that may happen, and of course they can. If you get into Europe, it's Crystal Palace at the moment, because it's run by Parish, but it's owned by the people he sold the majority shares to, an American mob who have got a team on the continent. So is that a conflict of interest? Now Crystal Palace are suddenly in Europe. Could they be denied Europe? That's a story floating this morning. We've had that before with Man City and the sides they've got in France, etc., etc. So there's always scaremonger stories that very rarely come to fruition, if at all. And I think we're too cute for that. And I don't think we will be in trouble for 1 second, no.
Okay, let's have a look ahead to the game of the weekend. Newcastle's final game of the season is a 4:00 kickoff on Sunday. It is not live on TV, no UK TV coverage anyway, because Liverpool versus Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest versus Chelsea will be on Sky Sports. Meanwhile, Manchester United versus Aston Villa will be on TNT Sports. With the top 5 position required for Champions League qualification, Newcastle sit 4th, one of 3 sides on 66 points, but with a superior goal difference to the other teams. After Wolves lost to Crystal Palace on Tuesday, Everton have got nothing to play for. They are guaranteed to finish 13th in the Premier League regardless of other results. Early team news: Lewis Hall, Matt Targett won't feature, but news is awaited over the possible participation of Kieran Trippier, Alexander Isak and Joe Linton. Everton, well, they've got problems themselves. James Tarkowski and Jared Branthwaite are both doubtful, as is Seamus Coleman. And since David Moyes returned to the Toffees of this season, his side have lost just 2 of their 9 Premier League games away from Goodison Park, winning 4 times and drawing the other 3. Referee on Sunday is Tony Harrington. First Newcastle game of the season, and VAR is Paul Tierney. Don't forget as well, if you are going to the game, that the food bank people will be there on Strawberry Place, and if you've got a cash donation that you can stick in the bucket, it will be matched by our owner, or one of our owners, Jamie Rubin. Because there's no live Amigos and it's a pre-record tomorrow night, I do have the opportunity of giving you Toon Stato's final view of the season on Ask Gibbo.
Hello everyone, 1 game to go and everything in our own hands. Newcastle United hosting Everton on Sunday, crucial game for Champions League qualification. Actually, after Newcastle couldn't win their last away game of the season, away to Arsenal last weekend, they couldn't equal their best record in the Premier League, which was 9 away wins in a season. They equaled actually the 8 from the previous very successful Eddie Howe season 22-23. Now they're looking for a 13 home win at St. James's Park, which they haven't done since the Bobby Robson era, since 2002-2003. Of course, the best home performance in the Premier League is under Kevin Keegan, the 95-96 season, when Newcastle won 17, drew 1, which was the last game of the season, and lost only 1 to Man United in that famous game. Now, when it comes to players, we have played 4 games without Alexander Isak this season, and we have 2 draws and 2 losses. Of course, the losses coming at Anfield and last weekend at Arsenal, and one of the draws was at home to Everton back in October. Now, against Everton, Newcastle actually, since that famous Alexander Isak assist in April 2023, Newcastle has no win in their last 3 games, so more than 2 years now without a win against Everton. But at St. James's Park, actually, we lost in 2020. Since then, we have 3 wins and 1 draw. And when it comes to our last home game of the season, it's again since 1920 that Newcastle have not lost at home. Back then it was against Liverpool. Since then we have 2 wins and 2 draws. Let's hope that we do the job on Sunday. We'll all be there at the stadium. However, lads.
Thanks, Andrea, for all your contributions this season. Look forward to seeing you next season. John, yes, the big game is finally upon us. Newcastle to win will guarantee Champions League. Of course, if they don't win, they need results elsewhere to go their way. But what is your feelings about this game ahead?
Well, it's in our own hands, and that's all we can ask for at this stage. Yeah, we could hope that, like Liverpool's won the title and Arsenal are already in the Champions League, that it was done before the last game, but it isn't. But we are in the driving seat because we've got a superior goal difference, and we know that if we win, we're there. And quite frankly, that'll do for me. This game is more than winnable. We've won 6 off the belt at home with the 50,000 Geordies screaming for us on the day, with the players known that can complete which in theory would be our best season ever, Steve, because for me it's a double. If we lift the Carabao Cup and the Champions League qualification, that's a double. And we've never had that before, because even when we won domestic cups, like the 3 FA Cups in the 50s, there was no European soccer, so there was no prize through the first division to be got. So there were single wins in a single season. This is a double for me if we win it. And we can do it at home, and the players can go on the break, get the flip-flops out, the sun oil, and the job's well done. I cannot see a side that knows how much it matters to Geordies, that had 300,000 people turn up at the homecoming party after we won the League Cup. I cannot see them turning up against Everton, a moderate Premier League side, and blowing it. There's too much at stake. Man for man, we are much the better team. We've got everything to play for. They've got nothing to play for. I can't see anything at all for a Newcastle win.
Okay, what's your prediction then, John?
3-0.
3-0 for John. I've gone for a 2-1. Thank you to John for joining us this morning. Thanks to everybody in the chat for giving us your questions. And we will be back at 6 o'clock with the 3 amigos on Friday. Enjoy the game, John.
I will certainly do that. We'll get the result. I'll enjoy it, and I'll have a big cigar and a glass of white wine.
Great stuff. Take care, mate. Bye-bye.
All the best, guys.
Big thanks to all our sponsors. Skips and Bins. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. Their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Big thanks to Mr. Vicky Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel, UK Coach Holidays. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2 crew, driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels, no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach, all excursions included. Their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the technical side of things. And if you want to listen to us as a podcast, you can find us on Sport Social Podcast Network. We're also available on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. If you want to support the channel, then hit the subscribe button. We still do 7 shows a week. Hit the like button, which is the thumb underneath this video, and click share to your social media. You could also take out a monthly membership or an annual membership at nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. For the lifetime membership, you can pay £25 and get a pen, a beer mat, a fridge magnet, a badge and a keyring and your membership card and entry into the monthly draw. Some events coming up: 27th of June 2025, the end of season party. Beresford, Howe and Watson will be at the Tyneside Irish Centre with Joe Allen in aid of North Tyneside Age UK. You can get your tickets for that one from nufcmatters.co.uk or from Voucher. No Covers takes place at the Clooney. That's on the 29th of June, midday till 3:45, and tickets are £10 from theclooney.com or newcastlelegends.com. Northern Horizon, a Blake 7 convention, takes place on the 9th of August, 10 till 4 at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Come and be some of the cast and crew in aid of Age UK North Tyneside Dementia. Tickets from nufcmatters.co.uk. An evening with Peter Beardsley and Chris Waddle takes place on Friday the 23rd of January 2026 at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. You can get tickets from the box office 0844 249 1000 or from tynetheatreandoperahouse.uk. And Bad Manners are back in the Northeast at the O2 City Hall, Friday the 30th of January 2026. Tickets from ticketmaster.co.uk. And we have copies of The Entertainer's book, signed by Les Ferdinand, available from nufcmatters.co.uk.